Hello and welcome back to the 5th episode of Racing Roundup, where we talk about all things motorsport. And this week it's the start of the big month of May series, where we have the final 2 weeks of the month of May being the biggest weeks really in the world of motorsport, with the Monaco Grand Prix and the Indianapolis 500 over in IndyCar, making up two of the Triple Crown races, which is comprised of Monaco, Indy 500 and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Le Mans normally taking place in June, but having to be moved back later in the year once again because of COVID. But before we get into any of the action from the weekend, some unfortunate breaking news which just came out a few minutes before I started filming, where former FIA President Max Mosley has sadly passed away, age 81 years old. He was the FIA President from 1993 to 2009, pivotal in the likes of the 2005 US Grand Prix scandal, where we only had 6 cars start the race thanks to Michelin tyre runners pulling out of the race, and the 2007 Spygate scandal, where Ferrari and McLaren, I think it was McLaren who was spying on Ferrari, ended up being disqualified from the championship. And founder of March Engineering as well, back in the 60s and 70s. So sad to see such a prominent figure of the world of motorsport and Formula One in particular pass away. On to the weekend's action, and starting with Formula One, which had its Monaco Grand Prix, this jewel in the calendar for Formula One, taking place for the first time since 2019. The race was sadly cancelled in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately. And some surprising results coming from the weekend in qualifying. Well, throughout the whole weekend, Mercedes, which you would expect to be right at the sharp end like they have been since 2014, not really anywhere. They were really struggling, especially Hamilton. Bottas was just about able to get in and amongst the Red Bulls and the Ferraris, onto that in a second, but Hamilton ended up finishing down at 7th in qualifying, a poor qualifying for him. Charles Leclerc on pole for Ferrari, a surprise upturn in pace for the prancing horses, who have been very much the prancing donkeys in the past few, well, from 2020 onwards really, ever since their illegal engine was discovered at the end of 2019. So great to see Ferrari back up on the top, and Leclerc taking the first time a Monegasque driver has taken a home pole position at the Monaco Grand Prix for Leclerc. So an incredible result. He will be looking to become the first Monaco-born winner since at a home race since I think 1929 or something like that, ages ago. I can't remember the exact date, but sadly was not the case, because just during qualifying he went and took pole, and then on the second run at the end of the session crashed it at the swimming pool chicane. He put it into the barriers and made lots of people think it was deliberate, because we've seen in the past of Schumacher parking it at Rascasse to keep his pole position. Nico Rosberg in 2014 went off a Mirabeau down the escape road to stop Hamilton putting in a faster lap time. Unlikely, in fact basically impossible, that this was going to be one of those cases, because you would like to think he would have done it a bit cleaner if he was going to bend the rules there, because instead lots of fears surrounding his gearbox and whether or not that needed to be replaced. If it did need to be replaced, it's a 5-place penalty as per the rules in Formula One. Ferrari checked it over on the Saturday night, couldn't find anything wrong, but said they'll check again Sunday morning to give a final verdict. They did. They decided they didn't need to change the gearbox, but on the reconnaissance lap to the grid after coming out of the pits, before the start of the race, the gearbox gave up. it died out on Leclerc, which meant he could not start the race. He didn't take part in the race at all, which means his Monaco curse continues. He's never finished a race at Monaco, whether it be in Formula 1 or Formula 2, formerly GP2 at the time. Yeah, absolutely gutting for Charles Leclerc, which meant Verstappen, who had qualified second, was on the effective pole. They didn't shuffle up in the grid slot, so he was still second in the second position grid slot, which meant he was on the dirty side of the grid. Valtteri Bottas, who was third on the clean side, got effectively in second, got a better start, but was quickly not put into the wall, but shown the wall by Verstappen on the short run to the first corner. But a very poor race for Mercedes, because Bottas, who was running in P2 for majority of the race, came to his first pit stop, and Mercedes could not get the front right tyre off the car. They had machined the wheel nut to the axle. They just completely rounded off the wheel nut with the wheel gun. You could actually see shavings of the wheel nut, presumably carbon fibre, flying off when they tried to attack it with the gun to try and get the wheel off. They still haven't actually got the wheel off yet, as of recording, because they've had to take the whole car back to their base in Brackley to try and just remove that whole front right corner, because the tyre, they just can't get the tyre off with the wheel gun, with the wheel nut just rounded completely off. There's no way of getting the tyre off. So a disastrous way for Bottas' race to end. But just sums up his season, really. It's a poor start to the season for him. One of the poorest starts to a season he's had at Mercedes. But not a poor race for Max Verstappen. He went on to win rather dominantly. It was not the most interesting races, never really is at Monaco, because it's so difficult to overtake, it's so tight and twisty. And also not a good race for Hamilton. He was complaining a lot over the radio thanks to a bad strategy from Mercedes. It happens from time to time, seems to happen at Monaco quite a lot as well, thinking back to 2015. But yeah, this time they came in early, tried to get an undercut, but instead losing out to both Gasly, Vettel and Perez in the pit stop phases, and he was not happy about that. He ended up finishing where he started in P7, because he had gone up those positions. That was thanks to Leclerc and Bottas dropping out, and then lost those positions to losing the positions in the pit stops. But yeah, great race for Sebastian Vettel. His first points of the season, coming home P5, his first points for Aston Martin. And double points finish as well for Aston Martin, with Lance Stroll getting a good number of points as well, I think in 7th. And Antonio Giovinazzi coming home in P10 for his first point of the season, and Alfa Romeo's first point of the season. So good stuff there from the midfield. But at the front, it was Max Verstappen who dominated. His first Monaco podium, let alone his first Monaco win. And actually all of the people on the rostrum was their first time visiting the Monaco podium, because Carlos Sainz came home in second for his first podium for Ferrari, and Lando Norris taking his second podium of the season in third for McLaren, which means in the championship it's all change, and quite a fascinating look to the championship, because Red Bull now lead with Verstappen in the drivers and in the Constructors' Championship for the first time since 2013, and for the first time in the turbo hybrid era, which started in 2014. But in the drivers, it is Verstappen leading for Red Bull on 105 points. His first time leading the championship as well in Formula 1. Hamilton second on 101 points, and almost half as many points back is Lando Norris in third on 56. And in the Constructors, Red Bull leading on 149 points, Mercedes second just 1 point behind on 148, and almost is just Lando Norris. McLaren third on 80 points. As always, supporting Formula 1 at Monaco was the Formula 2 Championship, which returned also to Monaco for the first time since 2019, and a slight driver change coming into the weekend, with Matteo Nannini dropping out of the HWA lineup. He is replaced for Monaco and the next race in Azerbaijan, at least for now, by Jack Aitken, who was racing for Campos last year until he made his Williams debut in Formula 1, thanks to the whole shuffling after Romain Grosjean's accident, Russell going to Mercedes to... Actually, yeah, it wasn't even part of Grosjean's incident because it was Hamilton who got the COVID-19, so Russell went to Mercedes and then Aiken was brought in at Williams. But he returned to Formula 2 with HWA, not the best of weekends, it's not the best of cars unfortunately, HWA. Didn't score any points, and in the third race actually stalled at the start, which meant he was several laps down behind his teammate, which is impressive because in qualifying his teammate Alessio Deleda was a whopping 6.3 seconds off the pace of the pole sitter, who was Teo Pourchaire, becoming the youngest ever pole sitter in Formula 2 at just 17 years old, 2 years younger than me. But yeah, Deleda outside of the 107% margin, which is the rule where if you're outside of 107% of the pole time, you have to be given permission by the stewards to race. He was given permission, to a lot of people's surprise and disappointment, but he did end up racing. Didn't do much, was often already 30 seconds down after a few laps. Yeah, I think he finished like 34th or something in Formula 3 last year, so that sort of shows what kind of a driver Deleda is, and was done for speeding. He posted an Instagram story of him driving while speeding, I think in Italy. Yeah, not the best of people in the world is Deleda. But in the first race of the weekend was the first sprint race on the Saturday, on the Friday even, because of the way Monaco works. And Guan Yu Zhou took a dominant victory really from his teammate Felipe Drugovich, a UNI Virtuosi 1-2. It's Zhou's second win in a row as well, after taking the feature race win last time out in Bahrain. And Roy Nissany coming home for Dams in third for his first podium in Formula 2. A great result for the Israeli, and a good result for Ralph Buschong as well in the Campos, who came home for his career best result in P4, just missing out on the podium at the end to Roy Nissany. There was drama at the end of that first race though, with Marcus Armstrong diving up the inside of Jehan Daruvla for P10, because that P10 is the reverse grid pole for race 2. So he ended up taking that position away from the Indian driver right at the death, which meant he was on pole for the second race. But he wasn't, because come the second race on the Saturday morning, a wet race as well, thanks to overnight rain and early morning rain, Armstrong broke down on his way to the grid. Meant he ended up making the start, but it would have to be a pit lane start, and then quite soon retired in the race as well, just a few laps in. So very disappointing for Armstrong, very unfortunate indeed. Which made the battle for the lead was strong between Liam Lawson, Liam Lawson and Oscar Piastri, who was the fellow Ferrari junior driver of Marcus Armstrong. But it was Liam Lawson who came out on top on the road, coming home ahead of Dan Ticktum for Carlin and Oscar Piastri for Prema, but was after the race disqualified thanks to using the wrong throttle map at the start of the race. Very unfortunate there for Liam, because that meant he went from scoring 15 points to nothing. Big dent in his championship hopes, which meant Dan Ticktum was promoted to the victory ahead of Piastri, and Yuri Vips coming home for his second Formula 2 podium in third. Then in the final race of the weekend, Teo Pourchaire dominated from pole position to become the youngest ever Formula 2 winner, as well as the youngest Formula 2 pole sitter. Like I said, at 17 years old, pretty remarkable. He came home ahead of Oscar Piastri, another second place, and Felipe Drugovich, all of them surviving several late race virtual safety cars thanks to various incidents at Vasquez, the penultimate corner, including crashes for Dan Ticktum whilst battling for third with Oscar Piastri, he was absolutely devastated after you could see head in his hands off the side of the road, just really upset with making that mistake, as you would be, because he's already said going into the weekend that he sees this year as his last chance to break into Formula One. He's one of the Williams Academy drivers, along with Roy Nisney and Jack Aitken in Formula 2, and Jamie Chadwick as well, who is defending her W Series title this year and racing in Extreme E. But back to Formula 2, and the Drivers' Championship top 3 means that it is Guan Yu Zhou who leads for UNI Virtuosi on 68 points, from Oscar Piastri on 52, and Teo Porcher jumps up to third on 47 points. Over to America, and IndyCar had qualifying for the Indianapolis 500, which takes place next weekend on the 30th of May. This weekend, over the 2 days, was qualifying. On the Saturday, you had the group qualifying where all 35 cars took to the track. The top 9 cars in that session would go through to the Fast 9 shootout on Sunday, and P31 and below would end up going through to the last row shootout to decide positions 31 to 33. From that session, also taking place on the Sunday, positions 34 and 35, or 34 and below in general, would not qualify for the race. And in that session, surprisingly, was the Penske of Will Power, one of the title contenders you would consider going into each season, former Indy 500 winner as well, so really surprising to see him struggle so much. He did qualify for the race, but will start on the last row of the grid, not what he would want. He starts alongside Sage Karam and Simone Di Silvestro making the race, which is good, which means rookie R.C. Ellison and Charlie Kimball, a former top 3 finisher at the Indy 500, did not qualify for the race. In the Fast 9 session, where points are awarded from P1 to P9, 9 points of first, 8 points of second, etc., until 1 point for 9th, it was Scott Dixon who took pole position, the championship leader, the reigning champion, 6-time champion, 4-time pole sitter now in the Indianapolis 500. Of course it was going to be him. Let's be honest, he took pole ahead of Colton Herta and the Indy Grand Prix winner from last week, or 2 weeks ago I think even, Rinus VeeKay, who will start the race from third. The FIA World Rally Championship returned to gravel rallies for the first time this season through the Vodafone Rally de Portugal. And drama before the event even started, with 2 of the World Rally 2 drivers, championship leader Andreas Mikkelsen and Ole Christian Wiebe, I think I pronounced that right, both tested positive for COVID-19 and had to withdraw for the race, or for the event. But Wiebe, no idea if I'm pronouncing that correct, has been banned for 6 months because he did not comply with COVID-19 protocols. When Andreas Mikkelsen tested positive, he had been in contact with him and did not declare that. You have to declare if you've been in contact with a COVID-19 positive, and didn't. And then later tested positive anyway himself. That means he is now banned for 6 months. That's his season over. And it's a big dent for Mikkelsen's season as well, being the championship leader. Not good for him. But in World Rally 1, the top class, troubles for Hyundai. They had a difficult event in Portugal with Terry Neuville rolling on special stage 7. They're difficult to say, these things. And Oyt Tanak in special stage 14 breaking his rear suspension. He hit something, a rock or something, right at the end of the stage, which caused him. He tried to get to the end but wasn't able to. Had to pull over and retired from that stage. And likewise for special stage 14, Kalle Rovanperä in the Toyota had technical issues according to Toyota. They didn't say what before the start of the stage, which meant he never ended up taking part and retired from there. But because of that and the difficulties for Hyundai, it meant that Evelyn Evans for Toyota was victorious, with Danny Sordo coming home second for Hyundai, the sole Hyundai remaining and Sebastian Ogier, championship leader, coming home in third, with good results thanks to the troubles from Hyundai for M Sport, with Gus Greensmith and Adrian Fourmeau coming home in a P5 and P6 respectively. So they'll be very happy with that result, which means in the championship it is Ogier who still leads on 79 points. Evans is now up to second, just 2 points behind on 77, and Terry Nouveau is third on 57 points. Back in the UK, and the British GT Championship, the UK's premier GT series, finally got their season underway for the first round at Brands Hatch, the first of the 2-hour races of the season. And a bumper grid we have this year in terms of the variety of different cars. We've got 6 different manufacturers in GT3 and 7 in GT4, which is set to be boosted up to 8 with Aston Martin coming in later in the season. But for this race, there was Aston Martin in GT3 on pole, with Beechdean AMR and Century Motorsport for BMW on pole in GT4, the 57 car there for Will Burns and Gus Burton, who went on to win for GT4 thanks to a late race puncture for the leading Ginetta of Assetto Motorsport. In the last 5 minutes or so they had a puncture, had to come in. They ended up dropping to 4th, which meant it was Century Motorsport 1-2, with the 57 car coming home ahead of the number 9 of Chris Salkeld even. Get it somewhat right at least, and Andrew Gordon Colebrook. I hate names. And coming home third in the Team Rocket RJN number 2 car, one of 3 cars they're running this year in GT4. James Cowell and Jordan Collard coming home in the final podium place. And in GT3 it was not Beechdean AMR. They ended up just holding on to second, ahead of the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini of Dennis Lind and Leo Machiski, yeah, that. And winning was the WPI Motorsport car of Phil Keane and Michael Igoe, Phil Keane being the winningest driver in British GT. And likewise at the start of 2020 they won the first race as well, I believe, which I was at Donington Park, this time at Brands Hatch. They're winning in the first time in 2020, so great result for them. And then the championship standings obviously being the same as the results from the first race, it being the first race. So WPI Motorsport leading with Phil Keane and Michael Igoe, Beechdean AMR for Johnny Adam and Andrew Howard in second, and Dennis Lind and Leo Machiski in third for Barwell, and the same for the GT4 results. And last but not least, as always making an appearance, is NASCAR. For the first time this season, for the first championship race this season, on a road course, not an oval. They visited the Circuit of the Americas for the Echo Park Texas Grand Prix. Circuit of the Americas, normally home to the Formula 1 US Grand Prix, but this time home to NASCAR on a very wet and rainy day. But it was Tyler Reddick who took his first pole of the season, didn't hold on to it, as chaos ensued during the race. Started out in relatively dry conditions. It was sort of damp, but the rain was falling, and it soon really started lashing it down. Joey Logano winning the first stage, but the rain really came down in the second stage, and on the back straights there was just absolute chaos thanks to the poor visibility. For several incidents. The first one involving Kevin Harvick, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney and Bubba Wallace. I think 2 separate incidents actually there, with one going into the back of the other and then someone else going into the back of someone else. But the second one was the biggest incident of the race, with Martin Truex Jr., one of the championship contenders, who was second in the championship going into this race. He hit the back of Michael McDowell. He then ended up slowing on the straight, and because of the visibility, Cole Custer didn't see him, went straight into the back of him flat out. Truex went flying. Custer's car ended up slamming into the barriers. Thankfully there's a foam barrier there because it was at a wider angle than it would have been otherwise, because it was a barrier by the entrance of an access road. So it hit it more head on than it would have done, destroying the front of the car, and the car burst into flames. Thankfully, Custer able to get out of the car very quickly climbing out, and actually the fire didn't stay for that long. I think the rain put it out quite quickly. But yeah, scary incident, red flag the race because of that. Kyle Busch winning that stage at the end of the day, before Chase Elliott winning the race overall at the end of stage 3 after the race was red flagged a second time with 14 laps to go and then not restarted because of the weather. So Chase Elliott coming home to take his first win of the season as reigning champion, finally getting that win on board. It's been a difficult season for him. Kyle Larson coming home in second for Hendrick Motorsport, teammate of Chase Elliott, and Joey Logano coming home for third for Team Penske, which means in the championship Denny Hamlin still leads for Jay Gibbs despite not winning a race still. It's incredible how he's holding on to it. 597 points. William Byron is up to second now for Hendrick on 499 points, and then just behind Kyle Larson moves up to third, 400 Motorsport as well, on 487 points. And then that is it for today. Not too much going on, just a couple of really big events really happening this weekend. Next weekend will be the Indy 500, so that will be a big one to talk about. NASCAR will be going on as well. I'm not sure what sort is going on. As always, I once again have not checked what's going on. I need to start doing that. But I know for certain the Indy 500 is happening. Extreme E as well is also back at Senegal for their second round of the season for the Ocean X Prix. So that'll be entertaining to see what goes down there. But that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching as always. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I will see you guys in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your week. Goodbye.